have trouble when I'm talking to someone from the States.
Oh, really? No kidding. That's funny. The what, like you said, the wonders of technology, you know?
That's right. I wanted to thank you for taking time to speak with me today.
The honor is all mine, man. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I mean, your podcast, I'm not blowing smoke. Awesome podcast. What you do for the metal community, it's amazing. And I have to thank you for even taking the time to let me go on the show. It's an honor. It's an honor.
Well, thank you. The reason I do what I do is being in my generation, I grew up, I'm a child of the 80s. I graduated in the 80s. And a lot of my comrades that went to school with me think that metal has died at the early 90s.
Right.
And
it's far from it.
Yes, absolutely.
Exactly. It's definitely there if you look for it, and I think it's more prevalent than ever right now. I mean, what we're seeing is there's so much good music coming out daily. It's amazing. It's there if you want to find it. That's for sure.
Well, I think modern technology has had a great hand in that because people are able to create at home now.
100%. I mean, that's what I do. I mean, if it wasn't for like you just said it, I mean, it's amazing that you can create a whole album with a couple of plugins, some amps, not even an amp. You can have a plug-in for your guitar too. I mean, it's so easy to get studio quality, and YouTube too. Like, you can learn how to produce an album on YouTube and be on your way in seconds. It's amazing right now what you can do, and you're seeing quality product come out. It's not. I mean, if you have a good ear and you can find that the good stuff, it's there. I mean, we have a mutual friend who I have to give a shout out to is Ron from Altered Minds. I mean, those guys released an incredible album earlier this year, and I'm sure, as he told you, I listened to the podcast actually today that you did with them. They live in all different separate spots, and they were able to send each other their tracks and make music and make it happen. And it's incredible what you can do. And technology, man, it's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to ask you, as far as the recording process for this one, how was it for you?
It was a lot of fun. This is my second album, but in a way it's almost my first, because I learned a lot on what to do right this time compared to the first one. I think sonically, I spent a lot more time and effort trying to make this sound more professional. I wanted it to really be pleasing on the ears, and just I wanted the listener to hear like everything that's going on clearly. And I don't know if I was perfect at it, but I think I got closer to the end goal, and the production side of it was a lot of fun for me. I think that's where I learned the most this time around. And that's where I think is the most time consuming at times, because it's easy to second guess yourself when you're the only one writing the music and there's really no one else to bounce stuff off of. So it's easy to doubt yourself, but that was probably the hardest challenge, was to just ignore the voices in my head saying, maybe not this, maybe not that, and just kind of stick to an idea that I thought worked and just kept the ball rolling. And once I was able to do that, it was fairly easy to get done, And
I wanted to ask if you could speak on one of my favorite tracks on the album, which is Reconnect.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. I love that you like that one, because that one's a little different compared to all the other material on it. It's definitely more of an acoustic vibe. So I like to throw a couple of curveballs when I do these things. Like on the last album, I have a song called Volure, which is kind of in a similar vein of Reconnect. It's all acoustic. But I wanted this track, Reconnect, to be uplifting. And in general, I wanted the whole record to be kind of an uplifting vibe. Even though it's heavy and it's metal, it doesn't mean you can't feel triumphant in a way when you listen to the music, and make you it puts you in a good headspace. And I wanted it to just kind of give that vibe off. So it was just really me and a drum loop and an acoustic guitar and just kind of vibing off it. And that riff came out, and I kind of wanted to make it short and sweet. It's not a long song, but it kind of gets the point across where you have the little solo in the middle. It's kind of like a call and response. Like, it's all me, but I tried to play two different parts as if it was two different people playing. So you kind of have like a little run-on sentence with the lead line, and then I kind of answer myself back as if I was trying to be a different player in a way. And the title was just kind of like reconnecting with music, because I've always wanted to create music and write albums, but I never had the means to do it. And I was always having a tough time finding people to play in a band. And that's kind of why I made this project. It was all me. So I didn't have to wait around for people to get stuff done. It was, for good or for bad, it was up to me to get everything done on my own, which could be a bad thing sometimes too, because if I drag my butt on it, it's not going to come out right. But that's kind of what the title came from, is just reconnecting with the love of music and just being able to actually like have fun making it.
And I wanted to ask you, how did you get the sound for the intro to Mr. Ego?
Awesome. I love that part. I was fiddling around. I have this digital preamp called an Axe-Fx. It's just basically, you can get like tons of sounds out of it for a guitar, or even a bass for that matter. And I was just kind of like messing around with delay presets. And I knew I had so I had the song written, but I knew I knew it was going to be the opening track. And whenever I put an opening track on a record, I want it to have kind of like a epic opening, because all my favorite bands used to do that. Like, if you think about Metallica, when Ride the Lightning starts off with Fight Fire with Fire, you have that classical intro, right? And then it just kicks you in the balls once it kicks in, right? And then And Justice for All, the same thing. Like, the first track on that album, it's those epic harmony guitars that just start fading in. Yeah. So I knew I wanted to have something in that vein, but not copy them, but have something that would be my version of it. And so I just accidentally, I couldn't even think I could recreate it if I wanted to, but like, I just accidentally came up with these delay settings. And I think one on the left speaker is a little longer than the one on the right, and they kind of bounce off each other. And it's almost got like a U2 vibe to it. Like, it's got that little delay kind of, and yeah, so it's just kind of like makes it almost like an epic spectrum. And then you just kind of play the lead line in the middle. And the melody I chose for the lead in the middle part of that, one of my favorite bands, In Flames, does stuff like that a lot. So that was kind of the inspiration for that, just to kind of have a melodic passage that you can sing along to, but I wanted it to end and then just abruptly kick into this heavy riff, and almost like an explosion, like, here I am, here we go, Yeah,
it's a perfect intro to the album.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Thank you.
And I wanted to ask you, how was it like working with Ron?
Oh, Ron's the man. I gotta tell you, Ron is a big reason why I think this album has been getting the attention it's been getting. I mean, thanks to guys like you and Chris from Forgotten Scroll and a whole a bunch of other outlets. Like, I don't think I would have gotten the attention I would have gotten if it wasn't for Ron, because Ron has shared my stuff the whole time I've been making the album, and he's been such a good supporter. And I knew on this record I wanted to have some people play on it, like some good friends, because it gets kind of boring just hearing one person play. You want to have a little bit of different flavors and different styles and interpretations of the song. So Ron was the first guy I called. And I mean, we got to know each other on Instagram just from guitar posts, and we love Iron Maiden, both of us. That's our favorite band. In fact, I'm going to see Ron on Monday, because we're going to see Iron Maiden on Monday in Worcester. So I'm going to see him there. I think he's in Queens. He's at Queensryche and Judas Priest tonight, right?
He is. He posted some video of it to make me jealous.
I know, right? He rubs it in, that guy. But yeah, so I sent them the track, and it's kind of funny because originally it had a part to it that was a little faster, And he goes, "You're gonna give me a heart attack, you bastard." He's like, "Why are you making me play over this thing? This is crazy." And I go, "Come on, you're a great player. You can figure it out." But I wound up scrapping it because I wanted to rearrange the track a little bit, anyways. So I sent him a new track. It was the same song but rearranged, and he was like, "Okay, I can work with this." And he laid down that amazing solo that you hear on "Exist to Exit," which is the second track of the album.
Yeah.
And it's so epic. Like I knew I wanted to have a little clean part that I played before his solo kicked in, just because I thought it would let it breathe a little bit more and just make it more epic. And I think that worked. His solo is my favorite solo on the whole album. It's just his playing is so fluid and clean. It's you can tell it's him. Like he's got a voice on the guitar. You can tell it's Ron. Like it sounds like Altered Minds to me, you know. But yeah, he was great. He was great.
Yeah, I think if you could take Maiden, put them in a bus, and take Fates Warning, put them in a bus, and crash them together, you have his style.
100%, absolutely. And we did a couple of fun like Maiden covers on Instagram just for the fun of it. And he sounds like the record. He's so good at like playing it so accurate. I wish I could be like I'm not as patient when I'm learning other people's solos. Like I can get the gist of it, but I always have to add my own little thing because I can't play like Adrian. I wish I could, or I can't play like Dave. I can kind of get the vibe, but Ron can do it note for note. It's amazing. He's so good. So
I wanted to ask you if you could pick your favorite track on the album, what would it be?
oh, that's a good one. I think if I had to pick one, it would be the last track, March with the Tide. And the reason I picked that is I love the middle part of that song where it has that Iron Maiden kind of harmony. It's a very short part, but it's really fun to hear. And I'm really proud of the two solos I tracked on that song. It's I wanted it to sound like Bruce Dickinson's solo records. I wanted it to sound like The Chemical Wedding, An Accident of Birth mixed, and I wanted like a Roy Z solo and an Adrian Smith solo, and that's what I kind of tried to do in that vein. And I had fun making that one. That's probably my favorite song right now. I think it changes day to day, but I think right now that's definitely the one.
And I also wanted to ask you about the album artwork and the artist that was involved.
I love the artwork. Isn't it cool? It's really colorful. So yeah, I found this artist called Youssef Farhi. You can find him on Instagram. It's just his name. He does amazing artwork, and he's really good at creating like colorful spectrums with digital effects on, but it doesn't look digital in a way. You know what I mean?
Right.
And yeah, I reached out to him and I told him kind of what the album title was called and what the vibe I was looking for. I knew I wanted to be eye-catching and colorful, but not like I wanted it to still look metal. I didn't want it to look sissy, you know what I mean? But in a way, like it was called The Shape of Sound. So how can you translate that in a picture? And that's kind of what he came up with. And I thought he did a great job with it. But he's incredible. And I think down the road, if I do make another one, he's definitely going to be the artist again for the next one too. He's great.
Yeah, it almost gives the essence of spray art.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I agree. Yep.
And I also wanted to ask you, what can fans look for next? Will there be a single release?
Yes, I got a couple of ideas. Definitely going to let this album breathe a little bit. I've been so grateful for the attention it's been getting. But yeah, I think we're going to definitely release a single next year just to kind of keep the name out there. But I definitely want to do a third one for sure. I'm already got ideas to make a third album too, but it's going to take a little bit. I mean, these things aren't easy to make, obviously, but I think I'm more impatient than anyone else. It's like I want to get going already and like, start creating again. But because that's the fun part. Like for me, like I hear these songs over and over because I'm trying to make them better and better. So when they're finally out, I'm like, geez, I've heard these a million times. You know what I mean? But I'm ready for the new stuff now, But Yeah, I think definitely like an EP or a single would be realistic in the next year for sure.
I also wanted to ask you, how did your musical journey begin? When did you start playing?
So I started playing when I was 14. Um, a friend of mine, I was going to Washington, D.C. on a school trip, and a friend of mine on the bus handed me a CD player and said, listen to this. And it was Metallica's Ride the Lightning. And I had never heard Metallica before. I bloomed late in metal. I was 14 and I didn't really know anything about it yet. But once I heard Fight Fire with Fire, that changed it for me. I wanted to pick up a guitar. I wanted to be James Hetfield. I wanted to sound like James. But when I really fell in love with guitar is when Iron Maiden's Rock in Rio live album came out. I spent a whole summer learning that album note for note. I played every afternoon learning that album. And that was like guitar school for me. And it's still like the Bible to me. That whole album is just Maiden's my favorite band by far. Like that's what inspires me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, kind of those two moments kind of like inspired me to play. And my parents got me like a cheap old Yamaha Fender Strat copy, and I was off to the races. I never stopped.
Yeah, with me, I remember when I was real young, it was the Beatles and Stones. And then one day in 76, a friend of mine came over and he goes, hey, I got this album I want you to check out. And it was Kiss Destroyer.
Oh yeah, I love Kiss.
And
Oh,
that did for me. And then once I saw Ace live, I was like, just hooked.
there really is no one better than Ace. He's the coolest guy. He still is. Like Ace is awesome. I love Kiss. I wish they would all play nice and let the guy back in the band, for crying out loud, and just have a good final run. You know?
Right. Because, I seen him the reunion tour, and I can tell you the biggest response was the second he played his first solo
Yeah.
from the crowd the entire night.
Oh, I can only imagine. Oh, I'd love to see Ace solo live too. I think he puts on a good show these days, right?
He does very
Yeah,
good.
he looks good too. He looks great right now too. He's in great shape.
Yeah, he's a testament to a lot of guitarists will say that they're better at their craft the later on in the years.
Oh, for sure. I think that's true too. For sure. Yeah. Yeah. That no, Ace Frehley is the man. He's the man.
I want to, and speaking of, we talked about Metallica. What other artists have inspired you and your style?
Oh man, there's so many. In Flames, I love their guitar work. Soilwork from Sweden.
Mm,
Again, Peter Wickers, the old guitar player for that band, he's one of my biggest inspirations. That guy is amazing. Um,
my
and
first interview was with Dave,
oh,
who came,
really?
yeah, with Night Flight
Yes.
Orchestra and that. Yeah,
Oh, they're a great band too. They're awesome. Night Flight Orchestra is awesome. And I'm so sad to hear that he passed away, man. I'm so sad to hear that, David Anderson.
yeah,
It's so sad what happened. Because he was a great player and great musician too. You know,
absolutely.
um, yeah. But Soilwork, amazing band, huge influence on my playing as well. Van Halen, obviously. I mean, you don't really hear Van Halen in my playing, but anyone who doesn't say Eddie Van Halen inspired them is lying. I mean, he's the king. He's the master. You gotta love Van Halen. His tone alone is just amazing. Like, especially, I love the early albums in the David Lee Roth era, but the later albums, he sounded killer with that chorusy, detuned effect. He sounded huge. Yeah, balance, exactly. Awesome. Unbelievable. You know? Yeah,
I
that would be pretty much the main ones. Megadeth, of course. Um, there's an Italian guitar player I love, Marco Sfogli. I don't know if you've heard of him. He plays on James LaBrie's solo albums from Dream Theater.
oh
If
okay.
if you haven't seen him, go on Instagram, just search Marcos Fogli. He's amazing. That guy's a freaking. He's an Italian John Petrucci, basically. Even though Petrucci's Italian too, but you know what I mean. But yeah, he's great too. He's awesome.
One of the things I love about your album is you're not stuck in a style.
Thank you.
You deliver a certain tone, but your stylistics and playing are different from track to track, and it keeps you in it. From track to track, I was wondering, what am I going to get next? What am I getting next? And that's what makes the album so great.
That's a huge compliment. I appreciate that, and that makes my day hearing that. That's because it's hard creating music that doesn't have vocals, and that's kind of my shtick. Is like I love the instrumental aspect of it because I want the guitar to be the vocal in a way and play interesting lines that because you can hear a million instrumental records where people just shred all over the place and it just kind of gets old after a while. It gets a little like becomes a nuisance. But I wanted it to be like more melodic and have the guitar sing where the verse would be normally and where the chorus would be. And then, okay, it's guitar solo time here, but during the song, it's not just a shred fest. You know what I mean? But
Sure.
I appreciate you saying that. That's a huge compliment. I appreciate that.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I feel there's a couple of tracks on the album that lyrics could fit in just perfect and go.
Oh, for sure. It's funny because Ron called me yesterday on the phone. He's like, dude, we got to write some songs together. I'm like, I'm down. Let's do it. So that would definitely be a fun project, like to do another project with vocals. That would be fun to have like an actual band. That would be a lot of fun. But I think Sound of Sirens will probably stay like as an instrumental project because I just kind of think that's kind of a cool thing to set itself apart from everything else too and not try to copy other people. You know what I mean? So, but definitely I would love to have some kind of project down the road where like can have some vocals in there too.
And I also wanted to ask you, if I could narrow you down to only one of your guitars, what would you pick?
It would be my Jackson Adrian Smith white guitar, the simple white one, because most of the album was written on that. It just inspires me so much to play, and I think it just kind of like in my mind, I think I'm Adrian Smith on stage playing. So kind of it like it gives me that inspiration to write music. So that would definitely be the one.
And along your journey, what do you feel has been the best advice you've been given along the way?
Oh, that's a great question. Not to take myself so seriously and not to worry about if the music doesn't even get heard by anybody. Just to do it for fun. Like if you make this stuff expecting a million people to listen to it, you're going to let yourself down right off the bat. Like my first album, I released it, hardly anybody heard about it, but I did it because I had fun doing it. And that I think that's the part you got to remind yourself is be sincere and genuine about what you create. And I think people will catch on to that and they're going to relate to that eventually. And if you enjoy what you're doing, it's going to pay off. It might take 5 years, it might take 10 years, but it will eventually happen.
Right. And like I talked to a lot of bands, and one thing we always have discussed is that if you go to follow the trend's already over.
Exactly. 100%. You got to make what you want to hear, what you're a fan of, because like you said, trends come and go. Absolutely. That's a great piece of advice too.
And I also wanted to ask you, would you say that so far in your career that the release of this album is your proudest moment so far?
Musically, yes. Musically, 100%. Like the fact that I'm doing a podcast with you talking about my music, it's like I'm on cloud nine. Like I never thought this would happen. Like this is great. Like it's so cool to be able to share your passion with people and people actually be interested in it. Oh, by far, absolutely. This I didn't expect this kind of response when this came out, and I'm just floored by it. You know, it's kind of overwhelming, but in a good way. You know.
Well, it's something you're gonna have to get used to because this is great top to bottom. So.
Thank you so much, Bob. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I also wanted to ask you, as far as going on the road or doing some local shows? Are you up for that?
Oh, 100%. In fact, that's definitely like that's probably like the big next goal is to somehow do a show. I was talking to another friend of Ron's, John from Bearer Battleship, who, if you haven't had him on your show, you should. They're awesome. Great band. Very unique. He messaged me. He's like, let's do a show. Altered Minds, Bearer Battleship, and Sound the Sirens. And I'm like, that's great, but I'm the whole band. He goes, we'll back you up. We'll figure it out. Let's do it. And I'm like, I'm down. Let's do it. So maybe down the road, Ron, if you're listening, we could do a show in New York or something. That would be killer. That would be awesome.
Absolutely, because I think these tracks would render themselves live.
Oh, for sure. I think it would be awesome. Oh, yeah. And you're going to be front row when that happens, brother. I'll bring you down.
That's right. And I wanted to ask you, speaking of coming down, you could tell me the best food in your area.
Oh, man. Gotta go lobster roll, man. In this area, gotta go lobster roll. I mean, in Boston, can't go wrong. Little mayo, nice hot buttered bun. Perfect.
And I also wanted to ask you, what's the best way to get a physical copy and the best way to gain merchandise from you?
All right. Right now the album is only digital, but I am thinking about doing a vinyl copy run. It's pricey to do it, so I'm looking at the logistics, but I definitely want to do a vinyl copy. I think that would be really cool. So I'm looking at those avenues. So I think within the next 6 months, I'll have some good news on that end. And for merch, if you just go on Teespring and just search Sound the Sirens, I have a whole shop there with t-shirts and hoodies. In fact, after this, message me your address. I'll send you a t-shirt. All right, because I just did some new designs. So I want to send you one. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. Just search Teespring, Sound the Sirens. I'll post the link on my Instagram and socials too for people to check those out as well.
Excellent. And lastly, I wanted to ask you, if you could give a message to your fans, what would that message be?
Oh, it would just be thank you so much for even just spending a second listening to the songs and sharing it, and just letting me pursue this passion and just caring about it. Like the fact that I just made these songs in my house, after work every night I would get home and my poor wife would hear me just playing guitar over and over and over. She's tolerated me so much over the past year. The fact that people just took the time to listen means the world to me. I appreciate that.
And she's to be commended because, to have that kind of support in your home is so important.
100%. I'm a lucky guy.
Well, I wanted to thank you for taking time to speak with me. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you.
Likewise. Thank you so much. And thank you for what you do. Your show, it's shows like yours are crucial for this kind of music and this kind of scene. And it gets the word out for these bands that just work so hard to make this music. And I want to thank you for doing what you do. And the honor was all mine, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend. And you have a great rest of your night. I know you worked hard today.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
All right. I'll talk to you real soon. Cheers.
All right, cheers. Don't forget, send me that address. I'll send you a t-shirt.
You got it, sir.
Thanks, Bob.
All right. Cheers.
See ya.